folks, Spooky here. I found myself with an afternoon where I couldn't do much outside at 4 degrees, so I thought I'd do a quick tabletop review of some knives, specifically a new bushcraft knife I got from a maker on blade forums. I thought I'd put a few representative blades here so you could get a good feel for how big a couple of these are, and have laid down a tape measure and just a Bic pen so you could have something else to compare to. So we've got 6 blades here. More on number 2, Spyderco Bushcrafter. I think this is a shing blade, but a woodlore clone with some, I believe, cedar scales. This is the Blind Horse Knives bushcraft knife. I can't recall the name that they gave this. It's a very handsome blade though, and pretty large compared to some of their other knives I've had. This we will get to, and this last one is I believe the first Brian Andrews at Off the Map Outfitters bushcraft knife that he ever sold. This is a really nice knife that I've gotten a great deal of use out of. It's only an 1/8 inch, and with these really high shoulders on the Scandi grind, it just slices and slices. It's also got this constant curvature around the blade, very thick, well-rounded handles, and just a terrific knife. I think he's still making them, and if he is, this is worth getting in line for. The Mora, certainly a staple in most knife drawers. I think extraordinarily useful, obviously worth $10 easily. I've used this for several years. I stripped the red paint off because I found it to be a little bit slick, but really a great knife. Its only drawback to me is the narrowness up here at the first finger. It's a bit small for me, but for draw cuts, which is what the Puukko style is really designed for, I think it excels. The Spyderco Bushcraft knife is certainly a favorite of mine. I only have one small thing to say about it, and that too is that they made it overly narrow, in my opinion, at the first finger. Other than that, it's got some great lines. It's very sharp. It sort of has a convex Scandi. It's not overly thick, which is excellent. And the scales are really handsome. These are those first run scales that got botched by the company that sold it to them. So it had some small cracks. I filled it with some super glue and then finished it heavily with carnauba wax, and it's had no problem since. So quite a steal. The grip's really comfortable overall. That one issue of being too thin is not an overwhelming detraction from its quality. And I really have to underscore that for a production knife, I don't think anyone's gotten closer to a really good to go out of the box bushcraft knife if you're looking for this pattern. This is a great knife by Blind Horse Knives. These micarta scales are great. They've done a pretty good job keeping it well-rounded. It's not as wide on the profile from the side and the handle as I would prefer, but still a really solid knife. It's got a tall saber grind here with a convex secondary bevel that's very well done, very polished out of the box. Makes for a great slicer and good general purpose knife. I've never found these knives to carve wood as well as my Scandi knives, and since my kind of bushcraft knives, woods knives in general, are for cutting wood most of the time, I always have a tough time selling myself to reach for this if I'm headed out the door. Almost always I've got something bigger with me, either a hatchet, a hawk, or a big knife, and the Scandis just do so well, it's really tough to ignore them. So really quality knife. If you like, need, love, whatever, convex edges, this is definitely the way to go. So our last knife, and really the main reason I did the video, is this really handsome Mark Andrews bushcraft knife. I was not familiar with Mark Andrews until I was just kind of checking out some Blade Forums custom maker forums, and saw this sitting there for no good reason for sale. He has really done a lot to impress me with this knife. So to get some idea of length, it is called about 9.5 inches overall. It's only an 1/8 inch thick. It's 1095 steel, which next to 01 is probably one of my favorite steels for these these kind of bushcraft knives. But what's really so great about this is the handle area, in my opinion. This is a bit beefier, you'll notice. Not necessarily in thickness, though it does have some thickness to it, appropriately so. We'll go ahead and compare it to, here's the Mora for starters. So you can see how much thicker this is at the swell. Though the swell on the Mora is further back, which I may discuss a bit more in a moment. Compared to something like the Spyderco, it may not be quite as thick actually. But there's a reason for that, and that's because the side profile is quite different. So notice how much wider it is from the side than the Spyderco. And the same with the Blind Horse. It's a bit wider, and certainly this at the point of the swell here it's wider. The reason that's important is because a knife like this Mora, you can hold it one of two ways. You can either let it roll into your fingers and keep it tight there. If you're doing a lot of carving or through tough wood, eventually that's going to get kind of rough on your hands. It's a good way to make blisters. Or you can put it back here, and it's not going to be able to come down this far if you've got probably adult-sized hands to meet the fold of your knuckle here, and so it's going to be tucked up. That's going to make your hand cramp because it's very small. But it does do one thing that's important, and that it allows you to meet this part of your thumb so that when you're driving down on a cut, or trying to make a more powerful cut, you're using a straight downward force through that part of your thumb. Very easy, nothing to press against in terms of skin that you're pulling against. So it's not tucked down here where you're going to make a blister, it's up here and you get this straight direct force. Very nice. Now these knives are too small. Frankly, all three of these and maybe this one are too small for that. It's just not round enough to make a full grip the way you would grip a hammer. So you're going to trying to do one of those two things, cramping your hand or putting it down here in the folds of your fingers where you're drawing force down from here or letting it flop around in your hand a bit. This is nice and wide. So it fills this entire part of my hand, it meets the folds here and it comes up to the back of my thumb, and it's a very full, comfortable, powerful grip. There's no hot spots that are going to be generated with this. You could carve all day and not run into any problems. It's also extremely comfortable in a side grip, chest lever grip, and a reverse grip. The next most important issue here is the location of this swell. So to get the most control and power, you want your hand to be up near the edge of this blade. On something like the Mora, as we discussed, the swell is further back. So it almost puts your hand back there, and that creates this small gap. Now the Mora hand is so small that small gap is meaningless. It's a half an inch. On something like this, if you were to put your hand in the center of this swell, I've got this fairly healthy gap here. So I've got a little bit of room. It gives what I'm cutting against leverage against what I'm trying to get done, against the cut. What I prefer is nice, high, choked up grip. This Brian Andrews knife is great at that, for example. Notice how far up when I grip it my hand is. I'm right at the cutting edge. I have perfect control. And this is no different than that. It puts my hand as far up as I would like it to be. And it's designed to. It's not that I'm sacrificing a good grip. The swell is up there and it drives the hand up. The only other knife that put the swell here properly is probably an Andy Roy Fiddleback Forge Hunter, which I later found out was built with some feedback given on a pass around about his bushcraft knife, saying, man, it would have been nice to have that swell moved up there for a grip. So I think Andy Roy hit it on the head with his Hunter as well. But this Mark Andrews has become an absolute favorite of mine really quickly. As far as craftsmanship, I cannot stress enough that I have no idea how he's able to meet the price point that he offers these at. The fit and finish, though it's not my favorite phrase, is phenomenal. I love these as forged flats here. The grind lines are perfect. The plunge lines are even. The tip is centered. Even the maker's mark here, which is likely too small for you to see, very, very well done. He's got some black liners in between these handles, which, by the way, are really lovely, very warm, not overly polished the way a bark river is, for example, sometimes where it becomes slick. This is nice and warm. It doesn't want to slip out of your hand. Stainless steel pins really set this off overall, and it makes it just look kind of a classy package. The only potential drawback to this handle size, if you were concerned about such a thing, is the width of the blade here. So a good width on a traditional bushcraft knife might be thumb width. This is maybe slightly above that, maybe 1/4 of an inch. A Mora, for example, meets that very well. Whoops, my wife probably won't be happy about that. The Woodlore clone certainly meets that, and this is only a shade wider. It's not enough to bother me personally. I don't have many criticisms to offer about this, actually. My sole observation so far is that perhaps these scales could be brought up just a bit, maybe another 1/4 of an inch. And the reason I say that is where it drives your hand up, which is perfect, your thumb wants to ride just on the edge of these handle scales. And it's actually tempting to see if Mark will make me another one with that change. I have another video that I'm hoping makes its way to YouTube of this knife in use. I'm afraid that the video came out a bit grainy, so the details aren't that great, but making a fire, or rather some prepping some kindling and a bit of light batoning and fuzz sticks for fire, making trap parts for figure 4. This knife did all that without any issue at all. Now that's not too remarkable, right? I mean, even the Mora should be able to handle that with absolute ease, including some light batoning. But to do it just very elegantly with a lot of comfort says a lot. So I cannot imagine how long Mark will be able to keep up selling these knives at the unbelievable price that he sold me this knife, which I won't quote for obvious reasons. But I feel like I'm getting in on the ground floor, so to speak, with him as a custom knife maker. I'll continue to watch the forums for anything he's got for sale and try to snatch it up before someone else does. But if you're in need of a proper bush knife and you have larger hands, mine are a bit larger, then this is where I would look. Certainly a Fiddleback Forge Hunter with the XL handle sizes, or a Brian Andrews are excellent options as well. But this is just an absolute winner, and I haven't seen much about it, so I thought I'd show you guys a review. I will probably have some more videos up in the next coming weeks with probably this knife and a couple of others on actual use, hopefully with higher quality. I've got a fancy new camera, so you guys stay tuned, and thanks a lot for listening in. We'll see you later.